think enough folks have joined, so we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, and thank you for joining the CalPass Plus High School to Community College Transitions Report webinar. I'm Alex Barrios with Educational Results Partnership and CalPass Plus. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Before we begin, I do want to start by acknowledging some of our important partners in this work. First and foremost, special thank you to the California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office, who provides major programmatic and funding support for this program. We also want to thank San Joaquin Delta College, which provides data and IT infrastructure to support CalPass Plus. And last but not least, and very importantly, all of our K-12 school district partners around the state of California who have provided data to make these dashboards possible and this work possible. On a very special note, I want to sincerely thank you for caring about what happens to your students after they leave your K-12 institutions. That is why we do this work, and that's the value in the tools that we'll be presenting to you today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here on the next slide with the agenda for today. We're going to talk a little bit about what CalPass Plus is and why it was created. And then we'll start diving into how to actually utilize the dashboards on CalPass Plus to improve student outcomes and the benefits that we want you to realize in utilizing this information in your districts and in collaboration with other partners. And of course, we want to make sure that we answer your questions. I'm sure that you probably have a lot of questions, and we're here and available to help answer those. You can ask those questions during the webinar. So on our next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you should submit your questions. Our QA format today is through chat, not the actual chat box that is disabled, but the Q&A chat buttons you see here on the bottom of your screen. You'll want to utilize that button that you see the red arrow pointing to on your dashboard if you want to submit a question at any time during this webinar. We will do our best as you submit questions to answer those. So please go ahead and submit those questions as they come to mind. And if we're not able to respond to you today before the end of the webinar, what we will do is get back to you no later than 2 weeks from today with a written response to all of the questions that we'll ask today. Let's go ahead and move on to the work here. So a little bit about us here at Educational Results Partnerships. We are a nonprofit organization. We administer and manage the CalPass Plus program in partnership with the Community Colleges Chancellor's Office and San Joaquin Delta College. Our mission started over 20 years ago. We are data-informed, employer-led, and equity-focused. Our goal really was to help education systems use data to improve student outcomes, and that has been at the forefront of our work for over 20 years. We established a partnership with CalPass Plus in our ability to take disparate data sets and match those records intersegmentally. So we have a lot of data scientists, technical staff, data engineers, and architects working at ERP who help to bring this data to life in an actionable format that you'll see today. So that's a little bit about us and our mission. Really, our ultimate goal is not only just to improve student outcomes, but we want to improve their lives, which is why we work closely with employers to try to better align the education system and the needs of employers. So I mentioned our role with CalPass Plus as administrator and manager of the data set. On the next slide is a little bit of an overview of what CalPass Plus has to offer. It's more than just submitting data. You actually want to see what those trend lines show over time for your institutions, and that's what CalPass Plus does. It's an intersegmental system. We produce analytics, charts, reports that allow you to see what happens to your students over time and where they end up in life. And we do that through a series of tools, dashboards, and personalized reports that are available to you as a data sharing institution. And for those students who do make it to community college, we do have some very valuable labor market information that we make available, which will show whether those students landed in a living wage job, whether those students are working in industry aligned with the pathway that they were engaged in their studies, and so forth. So that is just some of the valuable information that we make available And we also collaborate with a lot of research partners, both at the local colleges and other researchers who are engaged with school districts and other institutions who just want to know more about what's happening to students over time and how they can help. So CalPath Plus is a great partnership that we've established in collaboration with all of you. And on the next slide, you'll see just how popular this program is. Of course, because we have major support from the community colleges, we have all 116 colleges as data sharing members, but we also have a large number of K-12 institutions, over 600 across the state of California, that provide data so that we can see trends over time of how students are performing longitudinally. And there are also four-year universities in the state of California who are contributing data to CalPath Plus. So into the purpose of today's webinar, what do we do with all this information? On the next slide, I'm going to chat just a little bit about what do we do with this information? If you're a K-12 practitioner, and I know many of you are, what happens after those students cross the graduation stage in the summer and receive that diploma? That is really the question we're trying to answer, and that is what we want everyone who's here today to focus on. One of the things that is very important to K-12 practitioners is making sure that we are measuring success over time. And the question then becomes, what are we identifying as success, or what are our metrics of success? We know that you're tracking graduation rates. We know you're tracking college and career readiness, A through G. We know you're tracking a number of other important metrics, and all of those are important to helping students succeed. We want to encourage you to also track this. Why? Because whether your students enroll in community college or are successful in community college is a very important part of their lives. And looking at this data is also going to help you understand, after they leave K-12, whether there are equity gaps in outcomes. Not all student populations are performing at the same level, and it's good to dig into the data and find out where that's happening and what we can do about it. And then, of course, you'll want to collaborate with these research partners who are members of CalPath Plus to compare outcomes, and even within your own districts, compare outcomes between schools and find out what we can do with the information that's provided. So that's the purpose really of the dashboard. And on the next slide, I just want to, the main point for today that I want to emphasize, and that we want to emphasize for all of you, is to just remind ourselves that high school is part of the journey. K-12 and the learning that happens before the 12th grade and up to the 12th grade is part of a larger journey. And in the lives of these students, the handoffs are incredibly important. And what we're trying to do with this data is improve the efficiency of those handoffs and make sure that as many students as possible are able to catch that baton from high school to community college and run full speed ahead with where they want to end up in their lives. On the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about why the focus on community college. Why is community college so important? We've analyzed the data that's been submitted to us from across the state, and we found that 42% of the students at your institutions, on average, are attending a community college or will take a course in a community college at some point within 3 years of leaving high school. And that is a significant number of students in the state of California who community college is serving. And we want to pay attention to that data point because it is a reason why this dashboard is so important. And we want to make sure that we see how well students are performing once they get to community college. On the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today in terms of how to use the data that you'll see. And in a moment, I'll introduce my colleague here who will walk you through the dashboards. But the most important thing that we want to relay here is there are tools available. So when you go to the dashboard and go through the data, we don't want you to go through that without a flashlight. So we have created some tools through a worksheet that's on our helpful resources page that we want to encourage you to use. It'll help you ask the right questions and also help you navigate what the data is showing you and how you should review those results, and then walk you through the process of finally connecting. We want to encourage this. Connect with the CalPath Plus member at your local community college and talk about the data that you see on the dashboard. So on the next slide, once we go through today's presentation, you start populating those worksheets, and please do not hesitate to reach out to us directly if you just want to do a personalized session on how to use these tools. We do regional tutorials with school districts, counties to talk about how to use the tools. We do provide help desk support and personalized sessions. Please take advantage of that. We are more than happy to spend time with you to do more personalized sessions if today's webinar isn't sufficient to get you started. And really the goal here is to help you collaborate around the data. And so you want to collaborate not only inside your districts and with schools in your district, you want to collaborate with your local community college if you aren't already doing so. And so the data will help you identify areas of success and how to replicate those successes across your institution and as the students enroll in your local community college. But we also want to, of course, focus on continuous improvement. That's a very important aspect of the work, is how do we continuously improve outcomes until every student has achieved success. And this tool allows you to improve outcomes intersegmentally. And that's why it's a very important tool for you to utilize in your district work. Finally, we want to make sure that once you connect with that CalPass Plus contact at your local community college, that you maintain the communication. This is not a one-time thing. This is a process over time. And the first results you see that you're using as a benchmark will help you evaluate the success of any potential improvements you've made, or evaluate whether programs have had the impact that you were hoping to achieve for your students. Finally, I want to make a note of something very important on the next slide, which is the impact that some policy has had on the outcomes that you're going to see on the dashboard. In recent years, there have been two pieces of legislation that will impact the numbers you see. One is AB 705, which went into effect in 2019, and AB 1705, which went into effect this year. This legislation, for the most part, has eliminated remedial courses in higher education, although there are some exceptions for students being able to enroll in remedial courses. For the most part, there are very few remedial courses available in the community college system. And so what that's going to mean as you go through these dashboards is you're going to see an increase in the number of students in the last 2 years who have been placed in college level or transfer level English and math courses. So we want you to be aware of that, because you're going to see a jump in the numbers and wonder, how did that happen? That is most likely the impact of these two pieces of legislation, and we want you to be aware of it. What does it mean for students' ability to succeed in those courses? On the next slide, some data provided courtesy of the Chancellor's Office shows us that students are actually completing transfer level courses at increased rates since these two pieces of legislation went into effect, which is a great testament to the work of our K-12 practitioners in preparing students for these courses. But as you can see here, there's still a lot of students who we want to make sure that we are adequately preparing for that transition. And the work that you do with the state in collaboration with your community college is going to be a big factor in improving these rates over time. And the other thing you're going to also see as you start to dig into the dashboard, which Kashae will show you in a moment, is there will be inequities in outcomes. Some groups are performing better in these transfer courses than groups that are not performing as well. And we want you to take a look at that and use the data as a flashlight to come up with solutions and strategies for improvement. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and jump right in to how to use these tools, what you'll see on the dashboard, and how you take that information and start to take action with it. And I'm glad to be joined by my colleague, Kashae Knox, who's the Director of Outreach and Engagement for CalPass Plus here at ERP. And welcome to the webinar, Kashae, and thank you for walking us through the tools today.
Thanks, Alex. I'm excited to be with you all today, and hopefully you're caffeinated at this point. And let's get on to the next slide. So because we're in a webinar format, it's really important that we hear from you all. So we're going to take a moment to launch a poll, and we want to hear why you're joining us today. We're going to take about 30 seconds to fill out this poll, and then we'll talk through the results. Okay, great. So it looks like most of our participants want to know a little bit of everything. So throughout the course of the rest of the presentation, we'll be able to touch on learning a little bit more about what the dashboard does, how to use the information, and as well as seeing your students' outcomes. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so a few couple reminders that we have as we walk through the dashboard is any questions that you have around the metric definitions, the data sources included, or how the metrics are calculated. We have the data element dictionary that's available on the dashboard that's accessible for you all to view. So please make time to view that. The second is that if you have any ideas on improvements that you'd like to see made to the dashboard, we'd love your feedback. We'll be having an opportunity at the end of the presentation to collect a survey back from you all to see kind of what those improvements are. And then finally, we'll be addressing questions throughout the presentation on the functionality of the dashboard. Next slide. So here is the link to visit our website and to access the dashboard. Next slide. So throughout our walkthrough, we're going to be answering this question: how are my high school students doing in community college? So one of the metrics we're going to cover are your students enrolled early, also known as concurrent enrollment, or are they enrolling immediately after high school, which is direct enrollment? Are they enrolling in transfer level math and English? What awards and certificates are your students receiving? And then are your students transferring to a 4-year after they leave community college? Let's go to the next slide. So as Alex mentioned, we have an actual worksheet we'd love for you to view. This will be available on the chat. And we'll be walking through how you get all of this information and can populate this worksheet here. But a few of the questions that we're going to answer today is, did your students enroll in community college? What were your students' experiences at community college? And then what characteristics impacted student enrollment? So were there equity gaps? So go ahead and follow along as we walk through the dashboard so that you can populate this information for your district. Next slide. So now we're ready to move to the website. So now we're going to transition to CalPAS Plus. So the first thing that you'll see when you get to our website is our homepage. What you'll want to do to get to the dashboard is select K-12 schools. Under dashboards and reports, you'll select high school to community college transition report. And then anytime you click a report, you'll want to make sure you click go. When you get to the dashboard, as mentioned earlier, you have the data element dictionary that's available on the dashboard. So let's go ahead and open that up so you can get oriented to what that looks like. So again, as mentioned, each metric here will be defined. It'll talk through how it's calculated and the denominators and numerators that are included throughout the metric. So please make sure that you make time to view that. Another note I want to make is that to ensure confidentiality and consistency with FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, you may notice that some data is hidden, and that's because that there are values less than 10. So if you see that any of your data is masked for any reason, you can contact us at help@calpasplus.org so that we can get you your district's data. Great, so now that we're on the dashboard, I want to make sure that you know how to view the information. So on the left-hand side, you'll see that you can compare your outcomes across the state, by district, and by high school. You'll also want to make sure that you select the 12th grade cohort year you want to view. And then once you've made your selections, you'll always want to make sure you refresh the page by clicking view. So for the purpose of this walkthrough, we're going to look at ABC Unified. So we'll select district and then we'll select ABC and click view. So the first table that you'll see when you get on the dashboard is just a breakdown of your 12th grade cohort. So here we see that there are 1,700 students and they have a race and ethnicity breakdown on the right-hand side. So you'll be able to hover across the ethnic groups to see the percentage and numerator and denominator of each of those groups. You'll also be able to see how many students are socioeconomically disadvantaged. So now that you have that information, we can go down to our first metric, which is enrollment. And as mentioned earlier, this information will help you to see who enrolled concurrently, so participated in getting some college credits early. So that's the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, you'll be able to see those who enrolled immediately after high school. I do want to note in the worksheet, it does ask for a number. So to be able to see the number of enrollment, you'll want to select the arrow pointed down in the left lower corner that says show data in the table format. And this is where you'll be able to collect your information on the number of students who enrolled early and who enrolled directly. Now, as Alex mentioned, you want to start to ask the question if there's equity gaps within your enrollment. So to do that, you'll want to drill down by ethnicity. And this is where you'll want to see, are there differences between ethnic groups? We also have in the table format, the numerators and denominators of all the ethnic breakdowns. If you notice that some subgroups are disabled, that's because of masking. So those values are lower than 10. And if you'd like to have that information, we can always provide that to you if you email us at the help desk. Another way that you can drill down on your information is by selecting gender. Here you'll be able to compare and see if there's any differences across genders. And then finally, you'll be able to see, are there any differences among those who are socioeconomically disadvantaged or those who are not. So now we'll scroll down and then ask the question, where did my students enroll? So here it will list the top 10 community colleges your students enrolled. And I do want to note here is the opportunity that Alex mentioned on a kind of an opportunity to connect with your community college and build those partnerships. So if you see that you have a high number of enrollments in one of these colleges, that would be a great opportunity to connect and work with us so that we can connect you to that contact that we have with Kashae. It's also a great opportunity to encourage students with concurrent enrollment as you build those relationships. So now we'll move on to the first English course attempted. So for this metric, you'll be able to see on the left, those who came in at transfer level, those who came in below transfer level, and those who did not take. Again, we accept data over time, so it's a really great opportunity to look at if there's been any course taking changes over the last few years. You also have the ability to drill down by ethnicity, gender, and socioeconomic status. Now we'll move to first math course attempted. So very similar to English, you're going to see the breakdown who came in at transfer level, below transfer level, and did not take. Every metric will have a drill down option, so please make sure that you get familiar with just utilizing the drill downs. And then you can also see in the table below the numerator and denominator for each of these transfer level math courses taken. Now we'll move to transfer to a 4-year. So for this particular metric, we're going to notice that the percentage is a little low for this year, and that's because most students don't transfer after 1 year of community college. So we're going to go back in time a little bit. We'll go back to 2017-18 so we can look at this metric. And here you see an increase in those who transfer to a 4-year. Again, you have the numerator and denominator, and you have the ability to drill down by ethnicity, gender, and SES status. You scroll down, you can ask the question, where did my students transfer after community college? So here's where you see the top colleges they transferred, and you also get to continue to see where your students are going along in their education journey. So again, a great opportunity just to follow your students and track how they're doing once they leave you and go into community college. Now we'll go to receive the local certificate. So this is an example of masking. So if you bump into this label, you'll note that you can email us and let us know that your data is masked and you'd like to view this information. But for the local certificates, you may notice masking because this depends on the availability of certificates offered at your college. So we encourage that you work with your college at the local level to determine what the outreach strategies are and to encourage students to earn these certificates, really to build their resume along their education journey. We'll go to received a chancellor's office certificate. So here is an opportunity just to see which students are receiving these approved prescribed pathways from the chancellor's office. You do have the ability to drill down on this information and the local certificate if you'd like to see any demographic breakdowns. And then you can see where did your students receive their chancellor's office certificate. So these will be the top 3 colleges. Next, we'll go to who received an associate's degree or baccalaureate degree. So here's an opportunity to kind of compare metrics from enrollment to who received an AA or a BA. So you can kind of look and see if the percentage is different or how it's changed over time. You also have the ability to drill down on this metric by ethnicity, gender, and SES status. And then if you scroll down, another opportunity for you to connect with your local community college, just to build those partnerships to encourage a great handoff for your student. Now we'll move back to the slide deck. We'll jump to slide 42, I believe. So we have an opportunity here. If you don't see your data, you still have time to upload, and to upload, you'll just either book time with our team so we can walk you through a technical session on how to upload. We also have tried to make it convenient for you to just watch a YouTube video and follow along. So we have that available in the chat as well. We highly encourage you to review those resources as you prepare for your upload. Next slide. If you'd like to know a little bit more about how to utilize the dashboard, you can reach out to our team at help@calpassplus.org. We have our phone number available, and you can also book time with us. Next slide. So we have a deadline to upload your data. So if you're looking forward to using this data in the dashboard, we want to make sure that you meet this deadline of March 17th. So feel free to book time with us, ask us questions, make sure that all your data files look good and are ingested so that you can utilize it on the dashboard. Next slide. And as mentioned earlier, we want to hear about any improvements or ideas that you have on how this work can be more meaningful to you and how these tools can be more utilized. So if you'd like, you can take out your phone and open your camera app. You'll hover over this image and you'll be able to submit your survey that way. We also do have a link available in the chat that you can use to fill out the survey. It's anonymous, so you can be as honest as you'd like. No hurt feelings here. And we'll go ahead and leave this on the screen, and I will pass it off to Alex to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Kashae. Appreciate the presentation today, and definitely, please, if you can, we would definitely like to have as many surveys and feedback forms filled out as possible. It's very important to our work that we're constantly improving these tools, that we have our thumb on the pulse on what your needs are, and that we are building the tools in such a way that can meet your needs. And this feedback form is the vehicle by which to do that. You can also contact us directly. We'll have our email addresses at the end of the presentation. I've actually privately messaged a couple of you, had some really good questions that we want to definitely connect with you privately to discuss. But yes, please fill out the survey. It's important to our work. It's how we can get feedback from the field and improve these tools over time. I did want to start answering some of the questions that I'm seeing here in the Q&A that we haven't been able to address, and just want to remind everybody that we will get to every question. We may not get to it in the next few minutes that we have here, or we may not get to it today, but every question will be answered, and we will email out responses to every question within the next 2 weeks. There was some common questions that I see here in the chat that I wanted to address to make sure that that you all have the answers. One is around logins. So this session is less focused on the logins and more focused on how to use the tools. We're very glad that people are interested in logging in. That's fantastic. It tells us that you want to utilize these tools and we can help you do that. The way you should get a login is first and foremost, make sure that the institution that you work for or are affiliated with is a CalPass Plus member. And if Kashae or someone can drop in the chat where you find the CalPass Plus membership lists, you'll want to look there first. So first and foremost, make sure your institution is a CalPass Plus member. And then if you're with a local community college, by the way, you're automatically a CalPass Plus member institution. And then you would just fill out a login request. I put in the chat as well a link to login requests. So once you've confirmed that you are affiliated with a CalPass Plus institution or working for a CalPass Plus institution, then you'll want to submit your request to the help desk by filling out a form, which can we put that in the chat real quick here, how to create a login, and put that in the chat. And you'll want to go and fill out that form. That's the form that will ask you for your affiliation, ask you for identifying information, etc. There was a question about how long does that process take? Not long at all. We are able to process logins fairly quickly, usually within the same day that you make the request. And so you should, within the day or within the 24-hour period, get your login approved if you are in fact eligible to be a user of the system. We did receive requests from folks who are engaged as researchers. And the question was, can you access CalPass Plus if you're a researcher? The answer to that is you'll want to be affiliated with a K-12 institution. You'll want to be doing research on behalf of one of these K-12 institutions, on behalf of a community college, or on behalf of a four-year university that is a CalPass Plus member in order to get access to the system. Again, if you reach out to the help desk, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're trying to do research-wise and who you're affiliated with. We can check with the authorized contact at the institution that you're working with. We'll talk to the authorized CalPass Plus contact there and make sure that they are okay with you having access, if in fact you should be getting access to the information as you work on a project with that institution. But generally speaking, when it comes to researchers, if you're working with an institution to improve student outcomes, you may be eligible to access. There was a question around how is this different from other services? For example, National Student Clearinghouse. CalPass Plus is a free service, so we don't charge fees for the data. And we also very California centric. So we are focused on, that's why it's called CalPass Plus, is we're focused on the data for California institutions. So we are looking at outcomes over time for students who transition to community college. We're looking at also four-year institutions in the state of California. And about half of four-year institutions in the state are members of CalPass Plus. So if you're looking for coverage outside of California, or you have dollars and you want to pay for that, yes, there are some services that do that, but our service is free with the information that we have. There were a number of questions related to K-12 Strong Workforce Program, pathway coordinators who want to get access to this information. We really appreciate the question. We know all of you work very closely with us, or have been working very closely with us over the past 3 years to ensure that school districts that have a K-12 Strong Workforce Program grant are able to upload their data into CalPAS Plus. One of the things I want you to know is that this is one of the additional benefits of being a CalPAS Plus member. Although some institutions solely focused on uploading their K-12 Strong Workforce Programs outcomes data, there's a lot of other information on here that we want to make sure you take advantage of and utilize, especially since this is free of charge. And what we will do after this webinar is we'll contact the person at the Chancellor's office who coordinates the K-12 TAP coordinators and SWP pathway coordinators and figure out the appropriate arrangement to get you access to this information. There's a question about does CalPAS Plus provide a yearly report of student institutional data? The answer is yes. The goal is to refresh these dashboards every year when new data becomes available so that you can track over time how your student cohorts are performing at the community college level and beyond. So yes, that is the desire and the goal here is to refresh the data annually so that you can monitor those trends over time and see how your students are doing. Let's see what other questions we have here. Yes, there are some questions about how do you check the member list. Kashae has put in the chat where you can find that member list. Keep in mind, if you've just recently become a member, you may not show up there yet. So please be patient with us if you've signed up in the last few days, because we do refresh that page instantaneously. But the next time we refresh, you will see your institution there. Other information here and other questions. Yeah, again, the question is this free? Yes, this is a free resource. A lot of questions. Thank you for the questions, by the way. We really appreciate this. There was a questions around if students are dual enrolled at the college. It's an excellent question. And actually, what I'd like to do, Kashae, if we could, or Stephen, if we could go back to the slide or to the dashboard and show where you can find the students who are dual enrolled. It will actually, it's not going to say dual enrolled on the dashboard. This is one of the pieces of feedback that we appreciate because we understand that's probably the more common term is dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment. Yes, thank you for showing that, Kashae. As you can see here, early enrollment, if you hover over the definition, yeah, there you go. Those are that's how you track the students who are enrolled when they're still in high school. So if you're looking for the dual enrollment population and whether they're captured here, they are. But this, what you see on your screen is where you would find that group of students. Thanks, Stephen, for going there on the dashboard and showing that. Kashae, I'm not sure if there's any other questions that have come in that I failed to address that maybe we want to get to here.
Yes, I've been answering away. I do see a question from Rebecca. Is there a limit on how many logins an institution can request? So I would just say this, if you have an MOU with us, what we'll do is if you request a login, we'll have your primary contact on the MOU approve your access. And that primary contact will really be the authorizer on how many logins you have for an institution. So I hope that answers your question.
I also see a question here from Kelly asking about whether the dashboard gives student names of those in dual enrollment. And I want to take this opportunity to be really clear. And Kashae, I know you mentioned it a little earlier in the presentation. We do not disclose student information, personalized student information. We would never disclose that on the dashboard. That is not just local laws that prevent, but that's federal law, Student Privacy Act that prevents any of that information from being displayed on the dashboard. And so no worries, that information will not be available to the public. Nobody can get access to that information. It's because student privacy is very important to us, and we make sure that that information doesn't make its way onto the dashboard. Which led to another question that just came in a minute ago about how do we match student records for data uploads. So we create a unique identifier that essentially creates a special key that is using the first name, last name of the student, their date of birth and gender, and then we use that to match to community college records. And if they go through the community college system and we're looking at wage records and other things, we use it to match to those other data sets as well. So that's how we have done the match over time and how this information gets to the dashboard.
Looks like someone's having issue utilizing the survey link, so we will be including a Word document in the chat.
And when we upload that document, let's put the email address as well. So if you're having trouble accessing the survey, we appreciate that you're taking time to fill out the survey. That's very important to us. Please do fill out the paper survey if you had trouble accessing the online one, and email it to help@calpassplus.org. And we will type in that email address in the chat as well. If you have any trouble filling out the online survey, please do send a paper one in. Apologize for the inconvenience, but appreciate you giving your feedback over to us. And on the topic of feedback, we mentioned this a couple times, but I really want to emphasize this. It's very important that we hear from you on what information that isn't on the dashboard is important for your work. What is it that you want to see here with the data you provided that maybe we aren't currently showing? And I'm sure there's a number of different metrics or data points that you'd like to have as you not only engage in discussions with your local community college, but potentially with other stakeholders as well. And so we are very much open to that feedback. And our process is really to look at all that feedback and see what is being requested, what's the demand, and then make some decisions about what is feasible with the resources available and that's in need with the demand. So that's our process of how we process that feedback, and that's why it's very important that we get that feedback from you. I see people saying they're sending us emails. Great, thank you for doing that. We appreciate that. There's a question about, can you see transfer rates by community colleges for your students? That's an excellent question. That information, so if you're with a community college, we can point you to resources, and we will in the written response when we get links to that. We'll show you where you can see that on some of the other tools on CalPass Plus or on Launchboard. But if you're with a high school district and you want to see those transfer rates, if we can go back to where that information is, Kashae, on the dashboard, we want to point you to the slide where you can see transfer information, which is, there you go. So this is where you'll be able to find information about transfers. So for your school district, if you're a K-12 institution, you want to know what the rate is to four-year university, went from community college to four-year university. This is where you would find it. Thank you, Stephen. Oh, and then the question, can we see which community colleges they transferred? Yes, Rebecca, thank you for that question. I'm going to send you in our written communication a follow-up on where to find that information on the Launchboard. So high school to community college transitions report is more high school focused, but we'll show you where on the Launchboard you can find the information you're seeking for community college. We can put a link to the Launchboard in the chat. That would be great as well.
I do want to note, I saw a comment about, do you need to re-upload any data? So please check with us. We want to make sure we're not having you re-upload files that have been successfully submitted. So you can email us at help@calpassplus.org just to confirm that we've got all your files in, and you can ask us to see what needs to be submitted before you spend time submitting data.
Thank you. I do want to address another couple of questions that are similar here. The question was around when data gets refreshed. That's an excellent question. Obviously, we always want to have the data be as updated as possible, as soon as possible. So right now, what we've collected on the K-12 side, so if you're a K-12 institution, we will have, if you've submitted it, we will have your data through the 21-22 school, I'm sorry, to the 22-23 school year. Is that correct, Kashae? Or no, we're not in 23 yet. 21-22, my apology. I'm forgetting what year it is. So if you're a K-12 institution, we will have your data through the 21-22 school year if you've submitted that. On the community college side, the data that we actually just received this past week is for the 21-22 community college year. Okay, so when we refresh this dashboard, we need enough time to elapse between when the student finishes high school to when we have the most recent set of community college data to match records to. So we strive our best to get that information as soon as possible. One of the reasons why we are setting this deadline for March 17th to upload your data for the 21-22 school year, if you have not already, your K-12 institution, is because we did just receive this most recent data set from the community colleges. And when we refresh the dashboard, that will be, that information will be in that refreshed data set. So we want to make sure that, to remind you, if you have not uploaded your K-12 data, please do that before the March 17th deadline. Also, we can take data going as many years back as you're willing to provide. So if you want to go back 10 years, we can take that data, but we would recommend at least 5 years so that you can track a cohort over time. I do see a question here about, is there a way to find out about where students go after community college? Again, if you're a K-12 practitioner, you want to know that. The answer is yes. You want to put in a special request to find out. So the pathway was they went from high school to community college and then to the workplace, and we have data going 5 years back or more. Yes, we can help you with that. Please reach out to our help desk, help@calpassplus.org, with the data request. That would be what we call a supplemental data request. If you are contacting us from a community college, again, I would point you to the launch board resource. And I encourage you to check out the launch board. It's another tool that we develop in partnership with the Chancellor's Office that is going to be able to point you to some valuable information about what happens to your students after community college. We have a question from Leslie here about, are there any discussions to disaggregate some of the data by CTE and non-CTE? It's an excellent question. It's a really good question. One of the dashboards that I would actually encourage you to check out, which is a new dashboard that was released a few months ago, is the K-12 Strong Workforce Program dashboard on the launch board page. I'm going to dump a link in the chat here to that dashboard. That dashboard does provide some K-12 outcomes data for CTE students. I will go ahead and dump that in the chat here. And then I'll also put the link in the chat. I did see a question from somebody in UC Irvine who indicated that they would like to know if the districts that you're partnering with are submitting data to CalPAS Plus. It's a great question. If we could dump in the chat just one more time the link to the member list, that would be the way to check, see which member or which institutions you're partnering with are on our member list. And if they're not on a member list, but you want to encourage them to become members, please connect them to us. We're always looking to form new partnerships, always looking to have more institutions join CalPAS Plus so that we can provide this information to those districts.
I do see a few questions about the recording and the PowerPoint. That will be available on the website. So we'll have the PowerPoint on the website, and then we'll be emailing you a copy of the recording. So we'll get those to you as soon as possible.
Great. So yeah, just to recap, as Kashae pointed out, in addition to the PowerPoint and the video recording being provided to you, we will also send out answers to all of the questions that we received today, because we know we went pretty fast here and there were a lot of questions, which we appreciate. We want to make sure that you get a written copy of those answers to each and every single question that was received today. For those of you who submitted a question and we weren't able to get to you today with a response, that's one of two reasons. Some of you I privately messaged you because you had a very specific question that we'd love to work with you on. And some of you, your questions will require just a little bit more internal research, and we want to make sure we get that answer right before we respond back with information. So we have received all of your questions. We appreciate all of those questions. Please, if you think of another question or have an additional piece of feedback that you want to communicate to us after this webinar is over, if we could put our email addresses on the screen, please. We will make sure that we respond to you if you contact us directly. This is our contact information. My email address is here, Kashae's email address is here, and if you have a more technical question, like you want to set up a login, or you had a failure of data when you tried to submit, Stephen Hill is your contact. He's our help desk technician, and he does an absolutely fantastic job of making sure that we respond to all of those requests that come through the help desk in a timely manner. Kashae, any final things that we want to cover before we conclude the webinar? Anything that we missed?
I think we've covered it.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining the webinar. We appreciate your interest in this work. And please reach out to us directly, share your thoughts for how we can continue to improve these tools and make them valuable to you so that we can work together to improve the lives of students in California. Have a great day.